Baelor Breakspear is one of my favorite Targaryens of all time. I think he's top 3. I need to devote a video to that, but regardless, he very much cuts against the idea that is very commonly seen in the internet, specifically among people who don't know the books or Martin's material, that all of Martin's characters are gray and it's all a moral mess all over the place. Whereas if you actually read the books and look at characters like Brienne and Davos, who are pillars of good, and monsters like the Mountain and Ramsay, you will see that there are moral extremes in Martin's world, and I think Baelor demonstrates that quite well. He is a wholly good person, and I do think that stands out because when you get these Targaryen princes, these individuals with such power on the realm, it is rare to get one who is truly through and through a good person, an honorable man, and a true knight. And I think that is part of what makes his ultimate fate so tragic. Today I want to discuss that tragedy, Baelor as a character, what I think some of Martin's inspirations for him are, and of course his adaptation in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which I think is great. I should also say I am sticking strictly to non-spoilers here. I'm talking about the first novella, The Hedge Knight, and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms as we currently know it. I will not go any further forward than that, but let me know in the comments what you think of episode 5, and while you're down there, leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and it does really help grow the channel. Following episode 4 of Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Bertie Carvel interviewed with TV Insider, and what he said not only made me feel like he had a great grasp on the character, but that he understands the moral truths of George R. R. Martin's world in a way that few people do. To quote from that interview, "I've heard a lot today about Baelor being a good man, and that's not true until it is. The story is about the fact that you decide from one moment to the next whether you're going to do the right thing, and that's what makes the story moving and heroic, is when people choose to do the right thing in spite of what they might choose." That seems to me to be an important story to tell right now in a darkening world. And I do think not only is that important for our current state of things in the world, but I think it's very true of George R. R. Martin's world. It's not true that there aren't good people in Westeros. It is true that doing the right thing is often hard. It is very rarely the easy path, and we see it time and time again, incur consequences on those who walk it, but ultimately the world is made a better place for the world's Briennes of Tarth, or Ned Starks, or Baelor Breakspears. Starting with the last thing I listed, I think Bertie Carvel is absolutely killing it as Baelor Breakspear. He brings this weight and gravity to the role that I think really serves him well, and I was initially quite hesitant on this casting, not because I don't believe in his acting abilities, he clearly can act based on these episodes, but I initially didn't like that he really didn't look like the character in the books. Baelor Breakspear, in the text, is someone who appears to be Dornish. He doesn't look like a typical Targaryen, his skin is a bit darker, his hair is darker. Bless you, Harry. He sneezed behind. He's sneezing a lot these days. But regardless of that, I do think that this is very much an interesting adaptation of the way the character looks. Because instead of being, looking more Dornish, he does still have semi-dark hair, but he also has heterochromia, one eye of each color. And I like that it kind of reflects the dual nature of the character. Because I do think throughout the show, we kind of see two Baelors. I think the two Baelors we see are kind of exemplified in the various ways he interacts with Sir Duncan the Tall. There is the Prince Baelor, and there is Sir Baelor, because I think Prince Baelor is carrying the weight of the realm on his shoulders. He knows that his dad is not only a little bit older, but also that when his dad dies, he is going to need to step up and rule the entire realm. And I think because of that, he ends up kind of having this air of authority about him, obviously, as he is not only a prince, but also the hand of the king. But there's also someone in there who is truly a good man and an honorable knight. And we can see that in the ways he deals with Duncan. He feeds Duncan the idea about doing a trial by combat, because ideally that would be a much easier way for Dunk to prove he's innocent, because he could definitely beat Arion in a fight. But that ends up getting circumvented by the Trial of Seven, and it leads to this cascade of tragic events. I think the show made his entrance and declaring himself as one of Dunk's champions an even better moment than the text did, thanks largely to the score, and I like the way it's kind of paralleling Oberyn Martell becoming Tyrion's champion, two individuals from House Martell representing someone who is innocent, but is ultimately, going against this trial where they have very high odds of dying and failing. There's also this recurring element in George's work about dark-haired Targaryens getting close to the throne but never quite attaining it, and I always find it quite interesting. People tend to think, just because there are so many Targaryens with their distinct look, that is the only way they can appear, but no, we have individuals like Baelor Breakspear and like Rhaenys in the text, Rhaenys being the lady who exploded the dragon pit and then died at Rook's Rest. She has dark hair in the books, and I honestly wish she had it in the show as well. I think she's one of the few actors in House of the Dragon I didn't think aged that convincingly, and I think having her hair be darker at the start and kind of go silver to more resemble the Targaryen white could be an interesting way to, have shown that age progression. But I also think she does a better job than Kristen. Regardless of that, I think that this is an interesting kind of point of focus in George R. R. Martin's works, because I do think it kind of lends itself to comparisons to the dark-haired Targaryen in the main series. Jon Snow, this individual who does not appear to be a Targaryen, that did save his life, but it might mean that he might not take the throne if Martin's pattern holds. And I do think there is an interesting kind of continued parallel between Rhaenys and Baelor in the text. They're both the rulers who never were, and that is the tragedy of Baelor Breakspear. By all accounts, he would have been the perfect ruler had things gone to plan, but things never quite go to plan. People also talk about George R. R. Martin's world being random and death happens so much, oh my god, but it isn't as common as many believe. Death is a real possibility in George R. R. Martin's world, but that is because it is a realistic world with stakes. Characters accumulate risk through the choices they make, and Baelor did accumulate risk by taking part in this massive trial of 7. He knows, it was in the book he was reading, somebody on Reddit, read the pages out, that he's reading about Maegor the Cruel's trial of 7, and that event led to the deaths of 13 of its 14 participants, and also the 14th kind of also died a little bit because it was Maegor and he got resurrected. It's also somewhat of a tragedy that Baelor was so ready to rule. Many Targaryen kings come about in moments where they were not prepared to come into this large degree of power, but Baelor Breakspear was Hand of the King, and he was, by all accounts, a very good Hand of the King. As in the main series, we hear individuals reference him as kind of the extreme end of good Targaryen hands, as opposed to Maegor, who is extreme end of bad Targaryen hands, because he, did a little bit of a rebellion against his brother. But Baelor is someone who, seemed truly apt for rule, and could have maybe improved the realm. Though I would have been interested to see how he dealt with the upcoming, further Blackfire rebellions. I also really like what Baelor's death does for the narrative of Dunk and Egg's first tale together. It gives a lot more weight and makes it feel like it is a historically significant moment, even if it is just these two folks meeting up and becoming, a hedge knight and his squire. It's something that is going to change the course of history in the Seven Kingdoms, and we have only just seen that begun. And I'm very excited to see where it will go from here, as we do know that there are more Dunk and Egg stories in the works, and we know that there are going to be more seasons of this show coming out. I've seen people on Twitter complaining, oh, we're just going to get these very short 6 episodes and then nothing for years. No, it's confirmed that season 2 is not only filming right now, but we'll get season 2 in 2027, which I am absolutely looking forward to. I am very happy to be back in the time where we're going to get seasons of TV shows every year, unlike certain other HBO Game of Thrones adaptations that take a lot longer between seasons. But overall, I still have hope for both, regardless of any time that elapses between them. It is interesting to examine the other path, the road not traveled, as to what might have happened to Westeros without Baelor. But honestly, I don't really go for all of the what-if stuff all that much. The story is as it currently is, and I do think that the death of Baelor Breakspear does set the stage for the tragic cascade of dominoes that results in the downfall of the Targaryen dynasty. One simple mishap at a tournament is what leads to this massive series of wars and revolutions, at the end of which the Targaryens are completely displaced, save for a few individuals on the edges of the world. Walk with me here a second. This is going to get a little bit weird, but I think that Martin's inspiration for Baelor Breakspear can be tied back to his political, mindset forming. He was a conscientious objector to Vietnam, which is a boss move, fully approve of that, and I do think that his era of politics is very much that era in the 60s and 70s, and I've always thought, this is weird, stick with me, that Baelor Breakspear is kind of a stand-in for Bobby Kennedy in his mind, because this is a ruler who would have been a lot better and would have set things right and been a truly good ruler that was gunned down fairly close to when he was going to ascend to power in a completely unexpected circumstance. I don't know. There's a lot that kind of parallels, but overall it's just an idea I've had for a while as a former history teacher and someone who, knows how into that era of politics George R. R. Martin was, because he was young and growing up at that time, and it might have influenced his creativity. Thank you all so much for watching. What did you think of Baelor Breakspear's portrayal on the show? What do you think of his character and arc generally? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there, leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and it helps the channel out a lot. And I'll have many more videos for you on the very near future on A Song of Ice and Fire, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, House of the Dragon, and Game of Thrones, including one upcoming on a very big spoiler that was recently, leaked by a certain member of the cast that I won't get into here. But stick around for that.